ebidtopay provides transparency. ebidtopay assures that there's a level playing field between the buying organization and the supplier. We're seeing here a dashboard of a supplier who's getting real-time feedback on how he's performing. In this present case, the quality, it's perfect. There is a risk analysis, which basically gives feedback on the main dimensions this customer of ours is tracking. So, well, reputation is fine. Supplier dependency is fine in the sense not too dependent. There is locality, meaning the factories, the warehouses are close enough. But there is no God value on HSG. Geographic location risk is fine, but there is an issue on financial risk. Additionally, there is kind of the way of collaboration. Commercial, R&D, quality, all looks great. Here there are some hard facts like the volume developing, the turnover, the confirmation rate, and in this case, the ESG score. But how do we get there? What is now the way to identify those elements? And how do we manage to get that in all locations of the world? And what is the logic? What sources are being used? Let's open the hood and look below how this is built. We're having here the view of the financial risk calculation. And one of the cool things of ebidtopay is that we can have nested sources. So in this case, we're having the financial risk with an automatic real-time REST API coming from a provider called Achilles. But if Achilles doesn't have data, because they're good in Spain, some European countries, but this customer of ours is working around the world, we have the ebidtopay financial risk. Not speaking about this specific situation, but in general we find that those kind of quite significant names, Sphera, Achilles, ecovadis, very often do not have data on all the suppliers. And that's why we have a methodology to really give data for any supplier, including in this case the financial risk. Another interesting one is here the HSG score. Again, a situation, tons of companies talk about it. You know them, Sphera, Achilles, Integrity Next, you name it. So here, basically, how it's working is that if Achilles doesn't have data, we take ecovadis data, and if both Achilles and ecovadis do not have data, we take ebidtopay information. And just to give you an order of magnitude across our customers, we find that those so-called professional providers in 70 cases do not have the data. So actually this is in the end very often the main source. How does that work formula-wise? So it's basically a chain, and the null means no data. So in the end, it's ending up with ebidtopay data in a lot of cases. But how do we now manage and get this financial risk? What's behind it? What's behind the sustainability data? So with this customer on the financial risk, to cover it first, we're actually going into the balance. And we are tracking the balance, and let's take here maybe one supplier. If we're now going into the supplier, we are tracking all the main important financial information year by year. And this is quite important because we can see how things develop. How does the annual sales develop? How does the profit develop? What's the trend? And effectively, companies in trouble, they very often do not deposit on time the balance information. So providers like Dun & Bradstreet, Credit Safe, you name them, Moody's, they typically have actually on the most dangerous suppliers, which are so in trouble that they delay the deposit of the balance, the old information, so the warning doesn't work. Whereas we have an automatic mechanism. If you do not declare within the first 30 days, you're scored as a risk. Simple as that. Meaning that in the risky situation, our prediction methodology beats, in most cases, because it's more timely, those providers who are basically waiting for the publication of the audited balance. And when it arrives after delays, and in a lot of countries it's legal to deposit 6 or even 12 months later, well, then it's too late. We discover the risk immediately. So here we have a methodology where we basically, with the ratios, how they develop, with the trend, can score typically in a much better way than some of those professional providers just going to delayed declaration, the real risk. Let's look at another methodology which we combine. And this is a self-declaration methodology where we oblige the companies to actually deposit the kind of credit score they have. So those are some companies: Credit Safe, Kreditreform, Fra Services. And what's unique here is that we can deposit multiple ratings, and by combining those ratings and by having a common scale, we actually now can compare what does a meeting of Kreditreform, Credit Safe, Dun & Bradstreet, Moody's mean in comparison to, say, a score of this. Documents are deposited. If the documents are not real, we have AI detecting it. Well, automatically, again, the score is not good. Similarly, on the sustainability, here our questionnaires, they're in depths, at least on par of what EcoVadis is doing. Let's have a little look. For instance, here we have a health and safety questionnaire where, well, we collect tons of information behind their scoring. There's ethical business practice. There's tons of other information. And by having the good formula, by seeing the trends, the development, by having on top some sentiment feeds, we actually come to a situation that we can cover them all. And as you see, it's no contradiction. We can come up to those kind of very nicely presented scores. But what's behind is a chain of sources. Coming back to the sustainability, in this case, Achilles, if they don't hold ecovadis, and actually globally, this would be 70% ebidtopay data, and everything standardized and like that, well presented. So customers can make their choice. We can combine it all. And the true difference is, with our approach, you have data for all suppliers, and very often you're months in front, especially with the companies in trouble before disaster hits, because, you know, a company which does not deposit in time and resets the benchmark, well, they get